Hi guys, George here with Roofgraf. A short video today explaining the difference between the two types of projects and two types of templates that we see in Roofgraf. So I'm going to start by showing you the templates page. And for those not familiar with Roofgraf, a template is essentially a model of your costs. So it's something that we will apply to a project or to a roof report, and that will generate a proposal and possibly some other information such as a bill of material. Now you really have two modes of operation in Roofgraf. So the first here on the left is called FastQuote, and the second is on the right here called SmartQuote. So the FastQuote is really intended as a way to quickly generate a proposal. All you need is the number of squares, so the measurement process is much quicker because you're just tracing out the perimeter of the roof and calculating a predominant pitch rather than drawing every single edge of the roof. And it's a very simple way to quote. It quotes per square. So if I show you my example here, this is an ICO kind of good. We like to do good, better, best here at Roofgraf. So I've got three options, all ICO. And the first thing we'll do is give the template a name. This is something that we refer to this template internally. So it's good to be detailed here if you have lots of different types of templates. But you can also give a display name. So this is how your customer will see that offer within the proposal once the template has been applied. And then you'll define your selling price per square. So this is all inclusive. It should cover your material costs, labor costs, any other additional costs, things like permitting, sales commissions, any taxes, obviously your profit margin as well, any kind of overhead. This is really the dollar amount that your customer will pay. And then you have an option to add this to your favorites if you haven't already added the maximum of 3 templates. So fairly simple there. Then we'll ask you about which shingle would be included in this template. This doesn't have any impact on your pricing, but we do obviously want to display these colors to your customer when they receive the proposal. And the last thing you'll need to do for the FastQuote template is to define a statement of work. So this is just a kind of generic list of line items. We know that every job is slightly different, so you will probably need to update certain details here once this template has been applied to a project, but you can create a kind of starting point here that you can kind of work from when it comes to generating a proposal. So that's the FastQuote templates. They're super simple to set up, and you can have as many as you like on this left hand side, and you can choose up to 3 to add to your favorites at the top. Next we'll look at the SmartQuote templates. So if I jump in here and look at a kind of equivalent SmartQuote template, you can see here there's a little bit more information that goes into these templates. So with the SmartQuote template, we're not necessarily looking at just the number of squares times by a selling price per square. We're actually starting at the beginning and calculating each cost individually. So here, if you go over to materials, you can create a list of your materials. You can define, for example, how much you're paying per bundle, how many bundles per square. You can add your statement of work here, or we can do that later. And you'll do that same process for every material that you would use along with this shingle. So you'll probably have a hip and ridge cap and a starter strip that sort of goes with that particular shingle. And then obviously do your underlayments, metals, and so on. Next, we'll look at labor. So there's lots of options for calculating labor. You can do this per square and pitch. Very simply, if the roof is a 4 on 12 all over, we'll calculate the number of squares and we'll multiply that by the $80 that you see on my screen. If the roof is a distribution between, let's say, 4 on 12 and 8 on 12, we will essentially calculate those separately and then add them together with the different rates used here. Now you can do this in other ways. You could do simply $1 per square charge. Per bundle and pitch is slightly different. If that's something that you want to do, we essentially calculate a per bundle price for installation, and then we apply that not only to the shingles but also to the starter strip and hip and ridge as well. So if you'd like to use that method, feel free to do so, and you'll actually enter in a kind of rough per square price. We will take care of calculating that per bundle price and then applying that to your hip and ridge cap. So fairly simple there. And then obviously you have another section here for other costs. So you see my example is removal and dump. You could have permitting, sales, commissions, travel costs, any kind of administrative fees, really anything that's specific to the project. It doesn't necessarily fall under overhead, but it's certainly not material or labour. That's where you would put your other costs. And then if you want to, you can always offer discounts to your customer as well. So you could do that either on a specific job, or you could define them here so that whenever this template is used on a project, we will automatically add that discount, whether it's a flat rate per job, maybe $500 off as some kind of seasonal bonus, for example, or you could actually have as a percentage of your material and labour costs if you wanted to calculate discounts that way. Now, once you've built out the list of all of these costs, you can come back to your settings, and here you can define a sort of a target profit margin. So we will apply that percentage on top of all of these costs to generate a price. But you can also define a selling price range. So if you're used to selling this particular shingle, you've sold it many, many times in the past, and you know approximately what an appropriate selling price per square would be, you can define a lower and an upper limit. So in my case, for example, I know that this shingle usually sells between 300 and 325. There could be small details on the project, things like multiple stories, or if you have some accessibility issues, maybe you may need to slide that up to 325. But you can define here when you're building the template to say that at no point should this template or this shingle ever sell at more than 325 a square, and equally it should never sell less than 300. So when we apply this template to a project, if we find, we calculate all of the costs individually, we add those up, we add the margin, and then we will check to see whether we're staying within this range. And obviously if we're not, we'll round that price down, and obviously your margin will be adjusted accordingly. So a little bit more work to be done there, but you do have really good control over your pricing. And because you're building a list of those materials individually, will actually give you a bill of material as well that can be sent to a supplier. So that's a little explainer on the two types of templates. And then I just want to touch a little bit on the different types of projects that we have in Roofgraf. So when you're creating a new project from the jobs page, you'll see two options here. The first is a premium roof report, and the second is a basic roof report. So if I start with the premium, let's go in here and we'll create a project. Bear with me. There we are. So we enter our address. We confirm that we've got a suitable image, and then we arrive on the drawing tool. Now, since this is a premium roof report, we really want as much detail on that roof as we can possibly get. So as always, we're going to start by tracing out the perimeter of the roof, like so, and then we can actually start to fill in those what I call the internal lines of the roof. So this is your hips, your ridge, your valley, and there may be some flashings in there as well on occasion. So always starting and ending at an existing point, and we can very quickly come up with a full drawing. Now we're going to use our friend Liz to identify the pitch per facet, but also to identify which types of lines or edges we've drawn there. So we can close the pop-up, and you can see everything is color coded. So we've got rake in purple at the front here, our eaves are in blue, our hips are in red, valleys in yellow, and ridge in green. Lastly, you may wish to update your waste factor. That will always default to 15%, but this is a fairly simple roof. I would say 12% is probably about right. And that gives us both an initial square count before waste, but also the true square count with the waste there, which is about 24.5 squares on this particular roof. So of course you can always open your roof report in PDF format. Not going to cover that today. But the next thing is when we start to apply these templates to create a proposal. So you'll see for the premium roof reports, because we've taken the extra time to measure each different part of the roof and not just get the squares, we now have the choice, which type of template would we like to use? And typically, if you're creating premium roof reports and you are spending a little bit more time on the drawing tool, you'll probably want to use your SmartQuote templates if you have those set up. And you'll see your favorites are already selected. You may decide to use some different templates for this particular customer. Let's say their neighbor has GAF and that's more what they're interested in. Once you've selected the correct templates, we will obviously calculate then the quantity of each material required, as well as any other labor costs, other costs, and we'll apply that margin only so that only enough margin so that we respect that selling price range. In this case, I had an upper limit of $325 per square. So all of those calculations happen in a moment, and you can see we've done that in all three cases there with the three templates that we've applied. So there are some details, we won't calculate things like plumbing vents and caulking and sealant. You may want to add those now, perhaps estimate them, or you may want to adjust those numbers later on. So for now, I'll say we'll probably need 3 tubes of caulk, and I'm going to say probably 5 or 6 vents. We don't know exactly at this stage, but we can at least account for some cost there when estimating a price for a customer. So next you'll need to enter your customer's information. That can be done directly from the proposal if required. And then you arrive here at your quote. So you now have a good, better, best proposal for the customer. Each option has its price and obviously the statement of work that we've pulled from the template. Again, these details can be adjusted either with drag and drop or by editing, deleting things that perhaps aren't relevant, or even adding brand new line items if if you feel there's something that should be mentioned specifically for this job. Equally, the pricing is calculated, as I've explained, by generating costs, applying a margin, and then rounding up or down to meet the selling price range. But at if any time, let's say you're negotiating with a customer, you can always come in here and change those values as you see fit. So we might say 7,500 here before tax, or we can do that per square and say, hey, I'll do it for 300 per square for this particular customer. So that's it for the premium roof reports and the SmartQuote templates. Let's go back now and have a look at that FastQuote version. And for this sort of mode of operation, which is what I would call it, we can actually use the basic roof reports. So I'm going to go in and create a project for exactly the same address, and we'll see how this experience compares with what I just showed you. So up to this point, it's all the same. We're entering an address, we're confirming the best image, but now we arrive at the drawing tool. And in this case, because we're creating a basic roof report, we don't necessarily need to know how much eave or hip or ridge or valley there is on the roof. We're really just concerned with the number of squares. So we trace out the perimeter like normal, but at this stage we'll now ask Liz to confirm the predominant pitch, and that will give us an updated square count in the top left hand corner. So this one's come out as a 5/12. Again, I may want to adjust my waist. Let's move that back down to 12, and we come out to approximately the same number of squares in that case. I think I may have drawn it slightly quicker here, but we're happy with that. So again, we can create our proposal, and this time you'll see you only have the option to use your FastQuote templates. And the reason obviously is because in order to use a SmartQuote template and to get a bill of material and to sort of generate a proper cost for the project alongside a margin, we would need to know how much hip and ridge cap there is going to be, how much valley metal would need to be installed, and so on. Now, we don't have that information here on the basic roof report, so all we're using is that 24.42 squares. We still want to create a good, better, best proposal for our customer, so we'll apply those favorited templates, and this time you arrive directly on the proposal. So again, you can jump in here and add a customer's name if you'd like to do so, any other details that should be there. Again, you've got your good, better, best. You can always edit those, add a detail. I can see here, for example, I'm talking about completely the wrong shingle, so let's just change that there. And again, we're using a per square price, but if you want to, you can always say round that up to a fairly regular number. And again, you can do that per square if you prefer. So super simple. And as you can see, the proposal really looks the same as far as the homeowner is concerned. They won't know whether you've generated a full premium roof report or whether you've done it the faster way with a basic roof report. And you still have all of the same control in terms of pricing, statement of work, which colours are presented to the customer as well. So hopefully that explains the difference there between those two sort of approaches to measuring and estimating in Roofgraf. If you have any questions, please do contact us. We'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.